Hello, everyone, and welcome to Ready, Set, Action. This is your guide to navigating the world of business growth. I'm Christina Whitmer, a marketing veteran, and I'm joined by Deborah Horowitz, a talent leader. Each episode, we share actionable tips and insights for small businesses and small business owners and growth leaders so you can gain sales, marketing, and employee growth tactics that you can implement right now. Today, I want to welcome Kalli Combs. She is a a data and vibes social content strategist, a chief uncomplicator of social strategies, which I'm super curious about, a content creator, and then also a founder. So, welcome, Kalli. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Awesome.
Well, we are excited to have a chief uncomplicator amongst us.
I coined that name for myself. Just working with small business owners, we have a tendency to overcomplicate a lot, especially when it comes to marketing and social media. So I coined that phrase and claim it.
And rightfully deserved, and you were right. I think all of us as entrepreneurs do have that tendency to overcomplicate things or maybe over stress on
hmm
certain things when we really should just like not sweat the small stuff kind of philosophy.
hmm
But excited to have you. And, it's interesting because with social media, I know that you're a big proponent of looking at it not just as making posts and checking that box off the list, right? Because I think that for a lot of people, it's just a task that has to be done, right? To kind of keep up with the competition and all that sort of stuff. So, as our first question, I'm wondering, what do you see like as a common mistake that most people make when they're trying to build that brand on social and really have it impactful, like to really motivate responses and really speak to their audience.
Yeah, so I have taught business owners probably over the hundreds by now over the years. I've been in the industry for about 14 years now, and one common thread that I always see is trying to do everything. They try to do everything, every platform. I have to be on all the newest social media platforms that release, and what happens is burnout happens and overwhelm happens. And I also know that because I come from a place of relating to that because it happened to me. I grew my agency initially to six figures on my own. Um, just me and whatever help I could find at the time on several projects, and I was doing it all, trying to do everything, trying to be everywhere, be on all the platforms. And I ended up walking away from it temporarily. So when I say that, I come from a place of not just, seeing it, but also being able to relate heavily to wanting to do all the things all the time.
So that makes a lot of sense. I've seen that too with clients, and it's always like focus, like do something. So I just sort of to follow up with that, obviously you have expertise with the strategic part, the storytelling, and then understanding of community. So when a small business is like, they have obviously the limited resources always as they're going into the business. Like, are there three, when you look at strategy, storytelling, community, are there three areas? Like, how do they prioritize those things, or how do they understand how to know what to prioritize for digital presence?
I always start with storytelling first because it's a strategy in storytelling because you're going to be able to build community out of that story. You think about how people relate to you and your brand or whatever you're doing. They're going to relate to the story that you tell. They're going to relate to you know, whatever happened, even being a founder, I talk about, well, hey, I may have my master's degree now, I may be in a doctoral program now, but I flunked out of college the first time around because of X, Y, and Z. And I talk about that openly and I share that because there's a lot of people that can relate to that, and say, hey, this may be something that I'm going through now, but I see, this person over here, they're still thriving or they're still pushing towards this. I could do the same thing. So I always come from a way, avenue of storytelling, because there is relatability, um, in storytelling
Mm.
when you're talking to potential clients or when you're just sharing on social media, even with products. I have founders that have created some new product, but there was a need there, right? There was a story behind the why of why you created this new product. So share that,
Hmm.
because your community is going to grow around that story that you're telling.
I um, I don't know if you've seen this too, but I always feel like people overcomplicate like storytelling. Like sometimes that human, authentic stuff is good. They just want it, like they overcomplicate it. They want it to look like, a series on Apple. Like they just like the authenticity really does break through. And I feel like with AI, I'm really trying to get that point across. Is that the humanity, I think, is going to rise to the top for a lot of stuff. So I don't know
Yeah,
your
I
thoughts on
agree.
that.
And hey, AI has its usage,
Mm-hmm.
for a lot of things. But one thing that AI, unless you're making like your own specific bot that has all of your like personality and data in it,
Right.
it's
Right.
not gonna fully be able to have like a human to human connection.
Mm-hmm.
So the human relatability, it's still gonna be needed even with AI.
Cool. Cool.
I feel like this kind of leads into my next question, and something that you state for your clients, Kelly, is stop chasing the trends, right? And and AI is definitely, in our faces 24/7 right now,
Mhm.
right? As the trend, right? But you state to show up with intention. And so how does someone that's, just launching social media or maybe looking at how do I make it work better for me? How do they effectively identify what's their own unique intention on social media and kind of avoid the trends of keeping up with the competition or the algorithms and all of that stuff?
Yeah. Yeah, well, it definitely goes back to what we just talked about with storytelling. No one can tell your story like you can. Everyone has their own unique story. And I always mentor all my clients to lead with that first, especially if you're building from your personal brand, lead with your story. Now, even if it's a business page or like a business, brand, you can still lead with a story because you're the founder or you're the CEO or whatever position that you have, and you start with that. So I know it sounds simple than what it is, and I know it's like, oh, it's not that simple. It can be that simple because again, we overcomplicate it. We're always thinking about the next sale or like how we're going to do this, how we're going to pay this employee or how we're going to it can be that simple, especially when it comes to starting off with content and showing up on social.
Hmm. Awesome. I know that I read in some of your information that you help organizations, make sense on social, like it, like sort of, I guess, makes sense probably to the audience, and then also makes sense for what they're trying to achieve. So, when you think about marketing directors or head of sales, like, do you have practical steps for them? Like, what can they do to make sure their brand is on, is hitting the right points on social?
Most definitely. One thing that I do see, um, from a lot of relatively new businesses, um, they come out and they're kind of almost scared to have like a position. They're scared to really focus and talk about what their product or service, who it's for.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they kind of tend to beat around the bush when it comes to having a real identity. But that identity is what's going to set yourself apart. And your identity also is going to be relatable to whoever
Mm-hmm.
that specific audience is. So, one actionable step I would say is just stop posting like they're scared to be misunderstood and post with your clear intention
Mm-hmm.
on who you are, what you stand for, what your product stands for, who your product is for, and start there.
Yeah, you're kind of hitting close to home because that's not like a little bit related, is kind of like stop pretending that your services are for everyone, like
Mhm.
stop, like
Hmm.
be comfortable to really go niche and target what you do and who you work for and who you're best suited for. Because as a young business, you're like, oh, I can't say no to anything. So I think it's similar with message, I guess. You really have to like just lean into what makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And again, that comes from a place of relatability, even for myself.
Mm-hmm.
I went in when I first started and I was like taking all the clients and doing all the things. And I
Uh-huh.
never at that point really niched down in what what services I really truly like to provide and are
Mm-hmm.
really great at. Not that I'm because nobody's great at everything, right?
Right.
You have a specific niche that you cater to that you're good at,
Mm-hmm.
and then some you can do, but it doesn't mean like you're great at it or even want to do it.
Right.
I used to do paid ads a lot, and I did it because it was a means to an end, and I
Mm-hmm.
knew people needed it, and I knew how to do it. But I hated paid ads. I cannot stand a paid ad. Like even to this day, I'm just like, no. But at the time, I was growing and I needed the money,
Mm-hmm.
all that, and so
Mm-hmm.
I was too afraid to niche down and say, hey, I only do X, Y, and Z.
Right.
But it'll be
Smart.
beneficial in the long run
Mm-hmm.
is to, niche down and really focus on who your core audience
Right.
is and focus on that.
Yep. Agreed. Sounds smart.
And it's being authentic to yourself, right?
Absolutely.
And yeah, I think that's so important. And boy, we're just leading right into the next question so well.
I
The segue here is
love
just
it. This is great
flowing.
conversation.
You you say that your work is rooted in real people,
Hmm.
real data, and real results, and there's nothing more authentic than those three things, right? So, can you share an example of like a common data point that is often overlooked that really could make a huge impact on social media strategy?
Oh, yes. So I know oftentimes we talk about catering to the different platforms and being where your audience is depending on the platform, but something that I see overlooked is the type of content that's posted on that platform. And here's what I mean. If you're on Instagram, for example, and let's say you're doing carousels because you saw a post and everybody's like, do carousels, it's going to increase your reach and all this stuff, and you're going carousel crazy doing all the carousels in the world. However, it's not working for you. So you start doing videos. So I always encourage, just because you do one particular content doesn't mean you can't change it up and do that same content in a video format, or do that same content in a blog, or do that same content in an art. You can mix up the same exact thing that you're saying and just switch the content, because oftentimes, like I've seen clients have, a 300% increase. Um, they no paid ads or no anything. They're literally just regurgitating the same topic, but in a different content format.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing I really see businesses not really utilizing. They end up posting one thing and they say one thing one way, and then they give up because it doesn't get the traction that it needs. But repurpose even to your content format that you're using.
That's smart. It allows you to like stay on point for longer. Like people, I have seen people give up. Right, it feels like right when things are starting to take hold and people are starting to figure them out, and they give up because they're sick of it or they're bored with it or whatever.
Yeah.
So.
And I think oftentimes as we think that people are tired of hearing us regurgitate the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to understand that, I mean, only about 10% of your audience probably saw the post in the first place.
Yeah.
So you may be getting sick of yourself and sick of repeating yourself, but
Mm-hmm.
the audience is not sick of you because they probably 9 times out of 10 have not seen it.
It's not all about you, right? Like you're not the middle of everyone's world, so you must orbit a little.
Even though we want to be, we're not.
So I have a question. So specifically, if you segment certain brands or if you look at minority-owned brands, have you seen any specific hurdles that's faced there, or any advice that's unique to that audience?
Oh yeah. So I tend to cater to I say cater. I have a lot more minority businesses that gravitate towards me because, I'm a minority. So
Mm-hmm.
I tend to work with either minority businesses or female led businesses
Mm-hmm.
because, I tend to attract people that, they look similar to me,
Mm-hmm.
or they're female. So I work with them a lot. And whether you're a female owned business or minority business, we know that a lot of times we don't have the funding or can't access the funding as a female led business or even a
Mm-hmm.
minority business. And so, one thing that I always encourage them to do is to learn their digital framework and be able to at least build a skeleton format for yourself, for your digital content or your marketing plan. For two reasons, I've seen business owners um, get, I guess, gypped for lack of a better word, by
Mm-hmm.
people because they say, "How like we need $20,000 to do this," and it may cost $20,000, but if you don't have the knowledge and skill, yourself, you may not realize that you don't need this package. You
Mm-hmm.
better off with this package. And so having that knowledge beforehand will allow you to choose, a better agency like that's focused on things that you actually need.
Mm-hmm.
And two, also allow you to feel empowered as a business owner to kind of have a skeleton framework of understanding when it comes to your own digital marketing and marketing strategy.
And that framework, is that typically like the who you're talking to and what your message is,
Correct,
or
correct.
okay.
I start with, the bare bones. Like, okay, who are we talking to? Where audience persona?
Mm-hmm.
What do they look like? What accounts are they on? What social media platforms do they
Gotcha.
tend to be on? Just a skeleton format of who you're talking to, who your audience is, where they are,
Mm-hmm.
where they live, digitally, and then creating content that caters to that audience.
Gotcha. Awesome.
That sounds very uncomplicated.
Yes.
You're taking you're doing exactly what you say you're going to do. I love that.
Yes, yes, exactly, exactly.
Well, as the chief uncomplicator for social strategies, what is like the single most uncomplicating piece of advice that you would push out to, anyone who's doing the social media, whether it's the business owner, the marketing person, whatever, when they're feeling overwhelmed by all of the changes that are happening? I mean, I swear I cannot keep up with what the LinkedIn algorithm likes, from day to day because it
Mm-hmm.
changes so fast, right?
Hmm.
So help us uncomplicate with, one piece of advice.
Yes. So, my one piece of advice: first, you're going to audit your accounts because you need to see what's working and what's not working, and on what accounts. And you also need to see if you even need to continue a consistent presence on those accounts. What I tell my business owners just because you're not posting every day doesn't mean that you can't have a presence there. You may, have a profile there. You may post every now and then just to have a platform where if people are there looking for you, they know how to find you, they know how to reach you. However, my advice is to pick one, no more than two platforms at one particular time to build on and
Mm-hmm.
go all in on those before you extend yourself over to any other platform to have a consistent presence. You need to have a consistent presence on those one or two first.
Mm-hmm. Nice. I like that. I have a sort of a follow up. I think it ties into a couple things that we talked about today. So I was speaking with one of our previous guests, Brett and Ferguson, and he's a helps profits and companies look at profits and revenue and things like that. And we were talking about the fact that business owners like to and I was probably confessing, like break things and start fresh. Like they like to tear it up, and it drives my team crazy. Like I've gotten better over time, but I think that sort of ties into your recommendations on, having this sort of template, staying the course on content. Have you seen that too? Sort of this like, I want to redo it, and then you get off message, and it's just, it's
Yes,
crazy.
yes, absolutely. And honestly, that's something that early, like I've been there too. Now I've pivoted several times, but I've
Mm-hmm.
never gone away from my core message
Right.
of who I want to work with, what I talk about, all that stays the same. And so one reason why I think most business owners sometimes end up completely going away from their original messages or want to tear it up because you haven't built the foundation first. You
Mm-hmm.
haven't built that first. And so when you do pivot, you still have that to fall back on so you don't get away from the original messaging.
Yeah.
So you don't, stray away from that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I love to build the foundation first and
Yep.
uncomplicate it for them first. Because I found that it's not gonna change no matter how you grow.
Yeah.
Like unless you're completely pivoting, something specific later on,
Mm-hmm.
even your digital content roadmap, it may change based on how things are going data wise, so because you're looking at the data and seeing what's working and what's not working anyway,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but the core messaging or the core values or the core mission should not change. The core
Yeah.
foundation should not change.
Makes sense. So awesome. It's a lot of good stuff here. So,
Yeah.
Deb,
Great
I don't
question.
know. Yeah. Yeah, Deb, do you have any other questions before Callie sort of just shares her final thoughts with us?
That was going to be my question.
We're in sync.
Do you have any final words of advice or any final thoughts that you'd like to impart on us?
Sure. Well, I'll talk a little bit about some things I'm working on currently. Outside of working with my agency, Social Pal Cal, I actually we had the first social media and digital marketing conference in the state of Louisiana where I live called SocialCon.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a for creators, small business owners, and entrepreneurs that are looking at utilizing social media and digital more, whether through content creation, whether through just wanting to learn like the latest resources or the latest updates on social and digital. That's what that conference is for. And
Awesome.
so we bring in 5 speakers that are really dynamic and really impactful in their space to
Mm-hmm.
have us have a session, and it went really, really, really well. So we're actually planning for next year for June 2026 currently.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really excited about that. And the South where we are, it's often overlooked a lot of times when it comes to social media professionals or even content creators that are here.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a growing market, and I'm excited to further just tap into that.
Awesome. We'll put some links in the LinkedIn comment area so people can check out the conference
Yeah,
and some other
yeah.
things as well. So
That's
awesome.
great. But thank you so much for having me. This has been really, really great.
We really appreciate. I learned and sort of reinforced some messages, and felt like I was like thinking about some bad habits I need to stop.
Yeah, so I was going to say, I got 2 bad habits that I'm throwing out the window right now.
Yeah, Deb.
Hey,
Yeah, you need to uncomplicate things, Deb. Come on.
I say that's why I'm the chief uncomplicator.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kalli. We do appreciate it. So, to the audience, we hope you found today's episode helpful. Thanks again to Kalli for joining us. Don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn or YouTube. You can also catch Ready Set Action on your preferred podcast platform, Apple, Spotify, etc. So until next time, we'll see you then.
Bye, everyone.